Right, this issue is issue 141 of Thunderbolts, the first part of this three-parter, and the part just before the important one. This story is a crossover between the Thunderbolts and the Avengers, the team as featured in Mighty Avengers. We have this cover here of Pervert Ant-Man and Giant Girl. It is a great, great story. It is also part of a larger crossover event, which I don't need to explain too much of in this video. This recap page, though, forgets one member of the team, Smokey Bear. I feel the need to explain most of our characters and the state of the Thunderbolts team at this time. I did actually do a review of Thunderbolts issue 138, which I did purely so I could eventually cover this story without the pressure of having to explain things. But I suppose I'll do it again. The Thunderbolts were revamped by Warren Fallis in the mid-2000s. It became an edgy book where Venom ate people and Bullseye Man stabbed people and Norman Osborn went crazy. It held on to a small cast of characters from the preceding Thunderbolts run, and they were all handled disrespectfully. The run was very successful and popular because it had Venom eating people and Bullseye Man stabbing people and Norman Osborn going crazy. And then Michael Brian Benson saw someone else's success and decided he wanted it for himself, and he wanted to convince people this was his thing. So he took the half of the characters he thought were cool, as well as the artist of those stories, and did Dark Avengers, which was embarrassingly bad. But the main thing is how it affected Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts had already been worked over into this other book with Venom and Bullseye Man, and now those had been taken away by a greedy writer. So Thunderbolts was revamped, keeping the same tone, but now without any of the characters that made that version of Thunderbolts popular, and none of the characters that made previous versions of Thunderbolts popular. The new writer for it bailed when he got offered a better job writing Daredevil, and so Jeff Parkman was brought on to stall for time, and then eventually close the curtains on this version of things. With all that set up, you would think this is an obligation for Jeff Parkman, but he really does elevate this era so much with how he ends it. Our two central characters, our two heroes as it were, are right here. We have Barney the Purple Mercenary. The other is Pervert Ant-Man. The great idea here is that, and it harkens back to the themes of redemption that the series was about before Warren Fallis, the idea is that even in a miserable team of psychopaths, the two people who are simply the least evil can be heroes. So far in this run, mostly in the Jeff Parkman issues, we have seen these two characters exhibit some conflicted and complicated motivations. Barney is repeatedly a professional. He is there because he is being paid, but he is aware that the others are bad guys and that most of their missions aren't for the betterment of anything except their employer, Norman Osborn. He's in charge of everything. It's part of that wider crossover. Pervert Ant-Man, on the other hand, has tried, and maybe wants, to be a hero, but he lacks the willpower or even the principles to stand up to any of this. His strategy so far has been to shrink down and go and hide. Right, so Norman Osborn, he is invading Fairyland. Thor's Fairyland. That was the big Benson crossover, and that is the background for this amazing story we have here. This Thunderbolts team, or the Bastard Squad as I call them, they are being deployed to obtain a mystical artifact that could help Norman Osborn in his conquests. It is Anthony Hopkins' spear, and this little capture the flag side quest is so far and above the main crossover. This is engaging, and while it is meant to be smaller scale, it achieves the scope that Michael Bryan Benson could never dream of accomplishing with his storylines. So the team is interesting. It is staffed with a range of morality. We have Nuki. He is as much as our big bad for this. He is the leader of the team, and he is completely off the deep end. In the previous issue, he randomly shot one of the team dead. But God, that's another story entirely, and another video. And really, Jeff Parkman is doing wonderful stuff in these issues that any other writer would treat as nothing but a job that needs doing. I should say the team and their opposing sides have come to a head before. In Thunderbolts 136, which was mostly written by an uncredited Jeff Parkman, Barney stood up against Nuki, Edman stood up against Mr. Egg. Half the team turned on the other. We also have Casper. He isn't in this story much, but he is occupying a bit of a middle ground when it comes to right and wrong. So, continuing on with this roll call, we have Barney. Explained him. We also have Smokey Bear. He is an ad Spider-Man bad guy. He was also not included on the recap page. He is a guy in a bear costume. He is great in this. He too occupies the centre, like Casper. Smokey Bear isn't an unhinged nut job. He is someone who could likewise step up and recognise the right thing to do. Smokey Bear is a late-stage addition to this team. Jeff Parkman drafted him onto the squad. Smokey Bear is somewhat of a Jeff Parkman pet character. He was in Angels of Aslan. He was in a fair amount of that. He crops up in a lot of Jeff Parkman stuff, as the heavy or the grunt. He would be one of my pet characters too. He is great. The final character not discussed yet is Mr. Egg. He can be placed on the same side as Nuki. Whereas Nuki is completely insane, Mr. Egg is just a bad person. He is a loathsome murderer and a sociopath. Mr. Egg is meant to be one of the greatest fighters in the Marvel Universe. And the amazing thing is that other than beating Wolfman one time, he has never won a single fight. That would be another thing about this version of the team. Before Jeff Parkman, they were absolute jobbers. They never succeeded at any of their missions. They were always getting their arses handed to them. I would have called them blunderbars if Jeff Parkman had never came along and made them a fascinating study. Pervert Ant-Man, I've done a few videos about him. There are two members of the team absent. First is Casper, who is off in a guest appearance elsewhere, and the other is the dead member, Edman, that Nuki murdered at the end of the previous issue, seconds before this issue began. So here is Casper, and Casper doesn't appear that much to begin with in this story. Casper has arrived in Fairyland by himself, but his contribution is maybe codified in... Well, I need to say, yeah, this is a crossover with Mighty Avengers, but not really. I discussed what happened and speculated on things in my review of Mighty Avengers 35. You really do not need to read that to follow or enjoy this three-parter in Thunderbolts. But yeah, our idea is that Casper is actually the one who transmits the data about the Thunderbolts' objective, because like Barney and Pervert Ant-Man, he isn't as into their goals and their boss. The information reaches the Avengers, but obviously over in Mighty Avengers, we have Hank Gordon being written terribly and ignoring his responsibilities as an Avenger. So instead, Amadeus Cho, the superior Hulk, he takes it upon himself to bring the rest of the team together to stop the Bastard Squad from getting the spear. So here he is being picked up by U.S.Agent. We saw a short scene before this in Mighty Avengers 35. The bit where Amadeus Cho convinces U.S.Agent to come and help out. It is the only good bit in Mighty Avengers 35. For what it's worth, we also see him contacting Giant Girl and the Vision, but that scene takes place after this scene. And I think that might be in Mighty Avengers 36. Do people mind when the videos are like this? I am always a bit cautious and concerned. There's like cutaways every 30 seconds. It feels like an episode of Family Guy. But there is a lot of context and background that I want people to know for this story. It is an impressively concluded run that it really didn't deserve, but that it got it is so amazing. It is a testament to Jeff Parkman as a writer. He took the team that I think nobody wanted to write, and he gave them not only a terrific story, but a story that managed to bring it back to the book's core themes that had gone ignored for a couple of years. Arriving in Fairyland, the team instantly descend into infighting. They are at each other's throats again. Barney is supposedly insubordinate. He is undermining Nuki's authority by giving orders. And we have a little bit where even Mr. Egg is cognizant that Nuki is a basket case. And we come close to having them murdering each other there and then. This is a rare moment where Mr. Egg is actually positioned on the righteous side of the moral compass. The overall idea is that for as long as Jeff Parkman has been writing this version of the team, they are a volatile powder keg set to explode at any point. Under Jeff Parkman, the heart of the team was Barney and Pervert Ant-Man. They were the normal people. They were the ones stuck in the middle of this. Really, the team dynamics we have at play in these issues are tremendously unpredictable. You keep wanting half the team to die and the other half to get as far away as possible from the rest. The story continues with Smokey Bear. He pushes ahead and they penetrate a Fairyland armory. Then we have this great scene. One of my favourite scenes in the story. The trio of less evil characters, Barney, Pervert Ant-Man and Smokey Bear, they find themselves in a room filled with Fairyland treasures. And briefly, for one small portion of this story about an inhumane team, 3 of our characters are humans. They start fantasizing about keeping the gold, dreaming about what they can do with it, and then thinking about all this being over with. It's great, and it reminds us Barney and Pervert Ant-Man and even Smokey Bear, they aren't monsters. They are maybe understandable even. They are in a less than desirable position. We also add some humanity to Smokey Bear. He is just one of the guys here. And yeah, this is greedy, this is selfish, it is theft. But we are juxtaposing that level of evil with Nuki, who starts shooting at them and telling them that they are going off mission. Just to clarify, since you wouldn't be able to tell from visuals alone, this Nuki is the same guy from Daredevil Born Again. The Vietnam veteran super soldier boy with the American flag tattooed on his face. He was in some stupid armour in this. That is a whole other plate of biscuits to explain. Not worth covering in this, but yeah, it's the same guy. They are able to find the spear as featured, by the way, nobody noticed, as featured in the logo for Fairyland Attacks, the upcoming non-existent sequel to SeaWorld Attacks. The trident was changed to Anthony Hopkins' spear. For this next bit, I probably have to explain Mr. Egg, but I won't. When Nuki started shooting at his own teammates, it blew their position, gave away their presence, it discarded any stealth, And so now, Mr. Egg, he fights a random god who came to investigate. Mr. Egg is a horrendous jobber. This, though, him actually beating and murdering a god, is one of his 2 actual accomplishments. His other is his first appearance, where he beat Wolfman in a fight. I will try to explain Mr. Egg a bit more in the future parts, because his powers and stuff are a bit keyed into the rest of his actions in this tale. Right now, we have the arrival of the Avengers. U.S.Agent, Giant Girl, Vision, and Amadeus Cho, the Superior Hulk. Avengers assemble. We will continue this in the next part, which is one of my favourite issues of all time. I worry this video has been all over the place, but it really is a remarkable piece of work with so many different factors contributing to its success. But massive recommendations from me. It's 7 thumbs up.